Hey everyone, this is Mihir from Learn to AI, and we are here back again with the new episode of Learn to AI's leadership series called the AI Edge, where we sit with the leaders who aren't just shaping San Antonio, they are shaping San Antonio's future. Today's guest is a force in transformation and ecosystem building. She has nearly 2 decades of cross-sector experience spanning the US Army, Fortune 100 leadership at USAA, consulting, entrepreneurship, and now regional economic impact. She currently serves as the CEO of the Supply SA and the Executive Director at the South Central Texas Regional Certification Agency. Leading her effort that directly influence how small and local businesses access opportunity and thrive in our region. She is also an ambassador in the veteran entrepreneurial community. So please welcome Melanie McCoy.
Thank you, Mihir.
An operator, a strategist, a veteran, and above all, a builder of systems that work for people. So glad to have you, Melanie.
Thank you for having me.
Perfect, thank you. Reading this feels like there is a lot of years of experience.
Yes,
And
sounds like it, right? 20 years.
yes, absolutely. So let's dive more into it because definitely we want to know more, and especially I want you to unpack a lot of information for us and for our viewers. Let's start with the leadership. You have described always yourself as an ecosystem builder, someone who leads transformation with the people, with the center lens. How does philosophy begin, for you?
Yeah, I think it started in the military. Military really has processes systems, and then of course the soldiers. But we don't focus on the people. We usually focus on process and systems, but the people are a key piece. If you forget about them, there's this missing component that will fail your mission. So I think in the military is where I learned that you have to focus on people, not just process and technology and system. And that's where it kind of started. Didn't do it all that well with the people, and I learned that a little bit later, how to take care of people so you can get them on board with the mission and with your leadership, and that they will follow you, because these people will follow you if you inspire them and if you take care of them. And if you don't, it tends to go terribly bad.
The question I was going to ask you, was it something, that was shaped by army or military experience? And I'm glad to know, that's where the roots are coming from. So with the experience of the 20 plus years, with different industries, sectors, what's the common system failures, or the friction points that you see repeat, doesn't matter which sector it is?
The common thing is we don't build for sustainment or growth. We build to meet a goal, a deadline, to wave the flag saying we've got it done,
right,
no matter how good or bad it is, right? So it's more about meeting timelines, deadlines, than trying to build for sustainment and growth. And that's across the board. It doesn't matter what industry it is, what technology, what tool it is, that is always the thing. We're not thinking long term and how that tool or the system can grow and be a transformation piece, right? It's more about, can we implement and get it done within a time, and then we deal with the mess later.
So it's more about the vision, right? Vision and how the future, is it sustainable or not? So as part of this ideology, and now because of CEO of Supply SA, you're driving the regional shift in how procurement works. So for people unfamiliar with the word procurement, which is broken today as of now, what does your team aim to fix? What does a Supply SA?
So, great question. I think I didn't even know really what was called procurement. Is really local government contracting. They're just different terminology. And a study was conducted by Drexel University and the Aspen Institute. And what was identified is that there's a lot of opportunity locally in contracting, but that local companies are not participating. So that means someone else from the outside is coming in.
Right.
They're executing on contracts, and then they're growing their economies. And so it's really $6 billion that are here in San Antonio that local contractors and local businesses could participate in, but they don't know what local procurement is, and nor is there an infrastructure to support their growth. So what we're trying to solve is awareness, right? Really making sure that we hear, for example, with AI, right, that there is an opportunity with these agencies to do business with them and grow and scale your business that way. but also provide you with a guide that you need to understand the process full of ambiguity, and then having the tools and the system that will enable you to do so. And so I think it's not just one thing, it's really that entire ecosystem that needs to be built for sustainment and growth. So if there's $6 billion, $3 billion, or whatever, that there is that process where small and local companies and veteran small business entrepreneurs can participate and grow their businesses here in San Antonio.
And as you are spreading awareness about this, right, what's your observation? Like, how many people are familiar? Are they not familiar? If they're familiar, what's the roadblock? I mean, why they're not able to go through it?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of confusion about terminology. They don't know who does local procurement, what the process is to doing local procurement. So I think just the education is not there and the resources aren't there. There isn't really this, education or this, you can't go to college for it, right? Or you can't just take the course. There are a lot of private companies that will say, we will teach you or show you, but it's just a fraction of the entirety of the system. And then having the partners of the local agencies, because there's knowledge, institutional knowledge, that you have to understand to be able to be competitive. And I think that's another gap that we're trying to address with Supplies Aid, to be able to connect that institutional knowledge in the organizations with the small business community.
Wonderful. On that line, what does economic mobility through procurement actually looks like in practice for a small or minority-owned business in San Antonio?
So to me, it means that is another revenue stream for you to grow your business. So for example, you may have been a landscaping or a construction company doing commercial construction, and you are ready to grow and scale, or even maybe commercial no longer has the opportunity that it had before. You can now pivot to doing local contracting, right? And follow that process, understand that process, and grow and scale your business. We know the government buys and procures various things, and it's cyclical. So it's not like the work is going to dry up, right? There's going to be another project. You're going to continue to buy, pencils, pens, cleaning, landscaping services. So it's something that can give you that mobility and sustainment of that growth over time without having to always chase, a new commercial contract.
Okay.
So
a lot of our viewers, small businesses out there in San Antonio, this is an important thing, I would say, to look into it as well, because there is an entity exists like this to support and boost. Like, you know what? There could be many players, there could be many fishes in the ocean, but at the end, if you are someone who wish to really do local procurement, then there are ways, that you can get trained, you can get certified, and then you can also work with some of the companies. Let's talk about your operational excellence. With USA, the experience there, you led modernization efforts affecting millions of members and delivered major cost savings and operational efficiencies. What leadership principles that you learned, you experienced, that you still actively use at the suppliers?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was purpose-driven at USAA. We served the military community, so it was about showing up for our military community. I used to be, in the Army, and so I was already part of that community. So being with USAA was now I show up a different way for my community, and it was providing services. I was in banking, in the banking COSA, which is like the business unit for a while. And then I went to finance and HR. So different lenses, but always with focus on being purpose-driven, with a mission to serve others. And that's part of, for me, if it's not serving others with a mission or a purpose, then it's not for me. So I have to make sure and have to be able to make an impact for others. So a lot of what I do is if I get up in the morning, I know I can make an impact, then that drives me, and that's how I show up myself, and I can serve the ones that I'm working with, that are working for me, and my customer. So I think building trust is important, having ownership, accountability, integrity. So it's a lot of the soft skills that are combined with the expertise and the knowledge in your area. Right? I think you could be an expert in something, but that doesn't mean that you have integrity, that you have a mission, that you serve others. And so if that's you, you're probably not the one I want to, we wouldn't work well together because
Yes.
it's just not the right fit. So I think a lot of it is soft skills that drive me now to support all the technical capabilities that I have.
Excellent to know. And you're constantly stepped into environments, where the large scale changes was either overdue, resisted. When you enter a system that does not want to change, what is your first diagnostic step?
Oh, systems that doesn't want to change. Are we talking about systems or people? And we know people are part of the system, right? And I think that's in our nature. We don't want to change. We're comfortable. Most of us are not comfortable with change because we don't know how that change is going to impact us. For example, when you look at AI, a lot of people are not comfortable with AI because that is a change that is seen as something that, may impact them and what they're doing. So I think it's understanding what causes that resistance and then being able to address it in a way where you can overcome resistance. When we were working on the Oracle implementation, a lot of resistance from the people that were using the previous system because they had institutional knowledge on that system and they didn't know how their job was going to change. So I think with any ecosystem change that you want to implement, especially if it's a large change, right? It's how do you get people to move from A to M to Z in a way where they want to come along. And I think that is usually the problem. It's the people that you want to bring along because you're going to change for the better, but you got to be able to explain that it is for the better, not for the worse, even, for them. So.
But do you feel that's the most important, step and I would say a roadblock too? What's your secret sauce of, making sure, explaining, being candid, hey, this is for the betterment, right? But usually what used to work for you, which still, you're implementing or making sure, hey, this is something because you haven't seen the future or what this thing can do wonders in future. For example, AI. Then how, and I get it. Whole time I get it because when we try to explain it to people, they're like, oh, why do fix something which isn't broken? But then they're not thinking about, hey, you can probably save 400 hours every year. Then they get it. But so what has been your experience?
So I think it's personal, but then it's also that vision, the overall vision, seeing that where we're going in 3 to 5 years, for example. And maybe we stick with AI. AI is here, whether we like it or not. So we can adopt, adapt, learn, and utilize it for our benefit, right? To upskill ourselves and in 5 years be part of that. And I think early adoption is key in that, right? So if you're an earlier adopter, there's this expertise that you build up in adopting early and you become a subject matter expert in the future, right? So I think it's understanding the person, why they're resistant, and then being able to share the vision and where I know we're going, and then bringing them on board. And then understanding what the benefits are and then what the detriment is if you are not coming along, right? In a way that resonates with them and benefits them. So I think it's just having those lines of communication and being able to explain that.
Yeah.
So.
And talking about, the same thing also happens with the veteran community, right? That you have been supporting, and you mentor veteran entrepreneurs and actively support veteran-led initiatives. What have you observed? What strengths or blind spots do you think veteran founders constantly bring into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I think veteran entrepreneurs are very unique in a way where we have been taught to understand systems and processes, and we've had a lot of systems and processes in the military to follow. When we get out, it can feel sometimes like we're a little bit lost because we have now lost those systems and processes that we were so well aware of, right? Out here, it's very fluid, it can be very ambiguous. Things sometimes don't make sense in terms of why are we doing this? This is the right way to do it or the wrong way to do it. And I think so just navigating that is something that veterans or I have benefited from, and I try to continue to move past that forward. But veterans are very good in adapting, So that switch, once that switch and adoption has made, makes the veteran very successful in them pursuing whatever they want to pursue. So I found that just having resources and just having a network is important. And I think Alan was on your podcast the other day. Shout out to Lanthias Thompson. He's an innovator, right? So just being able to help innovate and bringing that to the table and helping our community in this new environment is key. It's just all about the environment adoption and adaptation to the environment. And veterans can do that really well.
Yes. So as far as the contribution comes in from the veteran talent, how do you see, the veteran talent contributing to San Antonio's ecosystem and innovation over the next decade, especially?
Very skilled, I would say, as a veteran, right? A lot of expertise, very service-oriented, right? We serve others, but you have the gamut. You have some innovators, you have people that are really good in technology background, creative. Of course, in the military, you can't use it a lot. So I think veterans are no different from anyone else. They've just gotten a whole set of tools throughout their career that they can now use. So I think that's very beneficial for them. But now that they're out, they get to use whatever skill they want to use that they weren't able to use and contribute in a really meaningful way. So I love hanging out with my veteran entrepreneurs because we get in a room together in collaboration, and change is something that we're good with, right? And you get in a room, it's just like dynamite. So, and there's just great things that veterans can bring to the table. I think one thing is to be really good with sticking things out, being very resilient, and having a purpose and a vision and going forward. So I think if anybody can partner with a veteran, you will see, like, if you are thinking about giving up is really not an option. And sticking through it is, and knowing that we can get it done are some really critical things to support our ecosystem, any ecosystem, really.
Yes, and I guess I also, not the same amount of veterans, of course, that you'd be meeting, considering having the background, but I go out and try to meet some people. Yeah, I mean, the energy, that you can just feed from. One of the person you mentioned, Mr. Alan Thompson, yeah, he is a dynamite, the way, and you can see the way the positive conversations happen, and he's about to got a blast. So, yeah, I guess that's something, having a partnership or working with them also is something to learn from. Never give up, never give up, even doesn't matter how tough the times are. But talking about veterans in small community, right? With now the AI, the shaping and reshaping the organizations and how they operate, new things coming. There is always this scary thing about AI, but also the positives about it, right? What do you think the small businesses and the public agencies will feel the impact of the AI?
Yes, they already do. So I think when you look at solicitations, when you look at solicitation responses to solicitations, I see more where AI is utilized, of course, in its simplest form, just by asking response and, that mode back and forth of response. So I think it's already being utilized there. I think it could be utilized to a greater extent for the benefit of small businesses. As a small business owner, you're one or two people, right? Maybe three if you're lucky, if you're not a solopreneur.
Yes.
So I think AI can be really helpful tool for you to be able to do things that you couldn't do in a day, in a month, because it just exponentially, increases your capacity. So I think if you are able to learn and have that as a tool that you can, deploy, it can be very beneficial. I mean, I don't know what people did 10, 15 years ago when there was no AI and they were responding to solicitations or, starting a business.
Yes.
It's knowledge-based. It's just, there are so many things that it can do. And I think it's positive. Of course, it does have its negative sides. We know that. But in entrepreneurship, especially solopreneur, definitely, I would say, benefits from AI in a big way.
And especially talking about public organizations or smaller institutions, as AI becomes important, doesn't matter, for them to know the guardrails, hey, you can fall to an AI scam. So it's important for at least for you to know what's real and what's not, because now some of the models have been creating amazing videos. It feels like the real person talking or a real guy calling you. Your son, your wife can be calling you. So with that, how much weighted do you feel of the upskilling of AI trainings or bringing, hey, you know what, if you don't know about something, like, hey, learn either with whatever free courses are out there or learn to also try to push it that way, not trying to sell anything here, guys, but just saying, many other organizations like us exist which are trying to push, like, hey, you know what, it's there. It might be for free. Just take it and
Yeah.
use it. Make sure that you don't have to let go some of your teammates in future, or either you lift them and put it to a level where they can use it. But where do you think, I mean, in terms of the regional efforts for economic development, procurement readiness, workforce modernization, for all these aspects, these trainings, do you think it would be beneficial? If yes, up to what extent? And I'd like to also hear the scary side of it too, if you have.
I think it can be used in many different functions and forms. Even when you start your business, right? If you need a marketing plan, if you need your business plan or something, I mean, AI, even some of the very common platforms can help you create all that in a much more efficient way, right? And from time perspective, you couldn't write a business plan faster than AI can. And I think from a learning perspective, to have these tools is important. When you go through local procurement, assessing a solicitation, right? Asking some really great questions on the legal aspect of a solicitation, because you won't be able to afford a lawyer right away, probably, right? So I know that AI is not legal advice, and I'm not saying that, but I think you can take some steps to get you directionally where you need to go through AI. I'm a lifelong learner. I love to learn, so I would encourage everybody to learn a new tool here and there. And I think where we're going, AI is going to be just critical. I suspect in the next few years, if you're not utilizing AI, you're going to be really behind the curve, even in your small business and trying to grow your small business. You can probably hire a lot of people, but I would venture to say you can use AI and use your people in a way for things that only people can do. For example, you and I here, we're talking about training and learning and we're collaborating. AI can't really collaborate for you on your behalf. You still have to do that as a person. Yes. You still have to go and do your sales calls as a person, right? There's always going to be function and things, that decision making that you will need to do. So, utilize AI for what it's worth, what you can, but people are always going to be needed, because at the end of the day, this is still people's business.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. I guess you put it in the right manner, that people, you need people at the end. And that's where I guess a lot of misconceptions are, like, hey, AI is going to replace everyone, AI is going to do this. I mean, over the period of time, there has always been the evolution of things, technology and all.
Yeah.
Everyone's still working. So it's the matter of how well you're utilizing. Because I was speaking with someone who is in the procurement space. I don't want to name them, but they were saying, like, earlier when they submit an requirement on RFP, right? 5 questions come, 6 questions comes. Now 50 questions come from each of the provider. Why? Yeah. Because it's garbage in, garbage out. Like, people are dumping it, not filtering it out. And so they said, we are also responding with AI. So that's something not right. Like, hey, then where is the actual thing that from which all these questions came from?
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting, because now you've just generated more content for a response.
Yes.
Which then gives you a response of 50 pages versus 10 pages, and you may not even know what you're responding to or what you responded and signed up to do. So I think you have to really weigh it. I think the down and the bad that you were saying about AI is when you look at maybe content creation for anything that is in more of the creative space, like music creation, lyrics creation. I don't think that's quite what I would like to see. Movie, you mentioned how sometimes you can't tell, right? It's getting to the point where your, actors, actresses, content is all AI and we can't tell the difference. I think that's for me where, or even learning, some of the learning things, not everything that comes out of AI is true, fact-based. Yes. So I think those are some of the key things where I would say, well, I'm a little weary about AI in that spectrum and how rapidly AI adopts new information that may not be factually based.
Yes.
I think those are some of the things where I would be a little weary about AI. and we are not thinking as much anymore. We're relying, some of us, a little bit too much on AI. So I think we have to weigh and measure, what is responsible to use AI for and when it isn't. And I think that gets very gray as well.
Yeah. And I like the way you said, that's why trainings are important, or learning is important, just to know the difference. Because if you're not aware about what AI can do, you might fall for it. You might think all these things are real, and either lose many of the things. Because earlier it was the email phishing scams which were happening, and you had to mandatorily do this trainings again. This time maybe it won't even give you that option,
Yep.
just does something super weird. But going back to the first answer that you gave, changing the people, not the environment, and also the systems that work for people. What do you mean by that on a personal level? Like when you say build the system that work for people.
Sometimes technologists, right, and I'm that way because I'm a process engineer. I design processes because I think, or maybe solutions that I think are valuable for people. I haven't done my customer, discovery yet, so I haven't really built something that the people want or need. And so I think when we started looking at how can we build this ecosystem for small businesses, we need to get small business voices, really understanding what the gap is, and then building the system for the gap. So not just building a system to build a system because we think they're great bells and whistles, but do these systems address the gaps, the needs, and the downfalls of what we currently have? And I think that's how we should build, right? Of course, we can always make it nicer and the whistles on top and all that. Really, there's no funding for that. But just making sure that the overall functionality enables small businesses to really, for the end goal, bid on contracts, win contracts, versus being bogged down by vast systems, tools, and processes.
And if you could remove any of the system barrier tomorrow with the snap of your fingers, this thing like Thanos way, what it would be and why?
So in San Antonio, we have 14 agencies, 14 different ways of getting to these agencies and their systems, registration. And I'm just staying focused on kind of procurement overnight if I could take care of that, because that means the barriers for small businesses are just too large to administratively do that. So I would do that overnight, right? Because I would like that one common system because it would solve so many things. Not just for them to be able to have access, but reporting, the streamlining, making sure there's consistency across the ecosystem on how we do things and data. And I think that would be a huge one, right? But overnight, if I could snap my fingers, that would be the thing.
Wonderful. And on the closing note, what's the next 12 to 18 months looking like for Supply SA, for the veteran space?
Okay. So let me start with the veteran space. So Alan and I are really committed to the veteran space and excited because we think being Military City, USA, we should really have a solid ecosystem of veteran entrepreneurs who are growing their businesses here. So we are, last year in October, during San Antonio Startup, we started Resource SA.
Resource SA.
Resource SA, follow us on LinkedIn. We're really trying to do a couple of things there, right? Providing growth opportunities. So that could be through procurement and supply chain, making connection, but also resources, being able to have a network and a community of military entrepreneurs that find that ecosystem, that network that they need to grow, and access to capital. So starting in a way of how do we not only rely on the larger systems that we have for funding, but is there another opportunity to be able to grow those small businesses here? So those are three things that we really want to do, because if we're Military City USA, we've got to be Military City USA for the entire community. And we feel like the entrepreneurship space, there's a little bit of work to do, and we want to do that. So that's on the veteran space side. And with the IBMF as ambassadors, we're collaborating nationally with other ambassadors in their ecosystem who are also growing their ecosystem. So it's exciting because we don't get to just do what we do here. We get to collaborate with other veterans across the country and see what the art of the possible is. And then you get Alan to get in the room, and myself and others, And now we're doing these things for here, but we're also looking at, can we span that across the country? So that's number one. For suppliers, year 2 is going to be interesting. So year 1, we really worked on capacity building, right? We worked on certification improvements, on small and local certifications. Please still get locally certified with SPE, very important still,
Yes.
because we identify who's small and local that way, right? Small business entity. In light of all of these changes on the federal and state level, we need to do more on the system side and process side with the agencies. So it's really getting the agencies to take a look at their processes and seeing what hinders small businesses to compete, right? To go and go with their solicitations, or proceed to wanting to do business with them. That's the year 2, because you can remove the barrier of education, of certification, but then there's still now, can you actually compete for these opportunities with the agencies? Also, are they right-sized? Are they big or small enough for you? If they're too big, you're not going to be able to compete. So I think it's that, and then are the opportunities out there? Really broadcasting with the forecast what the opportunities are. So those are really the 3 big things I'm focusing on for Supply SA, and making sure we find these small veteran entrepreneurs they can partner with a non-veteran. So it's all about partnership here in 2026, right? Looking at where we're going, veterans partner with non-veterans, and vice versa, because partnering and growing, you talked about it earlier, right?
Yes.
You have to partner for growth. And then if you don't want to partner anymore and you've grown, you can go your merry ways. But I think we really have to figure out how we can level up in a way where we can compete with these large companies that are coming into the ecosystem and getting these contracts. So that's kind of where my head is next year. And then just, continuing to serve and see how I can support local veteran entrepreneurs and even mill spouses. When I speak about veteran entrepreneurs, I kind of speak about both. Mm-hmm. They're distinctly different, but still serving. So to me, the entire ecosystem is, what I want to support and growing San Antonio.
Plenty of solid things. I guess your plate's full.
Yeah.
All guns blazing. So I guess, the key takeaway for this discussion and conversation is mainly for small to medium business entrepreneurs, veteran, non-veterans, If you want to work with, let's say, these 14 agencies, we're talking about Alamo colleges, CPS Energy, we're talking about UT San Antonio, so many of them. Then there are ways, if you're not familiar with the term procurement, how to do business with them. Doesn't matter what you might be selling, right? The idea is you can get into the business with them. And there are ways you need to learn. Even for veterans, there is something like this called Supply SA, which exists. They provide trainings, especially, which is the important thing, like, for you to know what's there, how to get started, even the detailed training of get certified, work with them. So they are trying to do what they are trying to do, like push it out. They'll need your support at the end about, step up, go there and work with them. Mm-hmm. So I really wish, next time we connect, you already have achieved so many things further. As part of this, we are going to try to make it a series. We are going to try. And I also heard they are trying to bring in something like self-learning for them, mm-hmm. for the people, so that...
And you're going to do a training, right?
We'll try
AI
to.
training, that's right.
So the idea is that, how the vendors, more and more vendors, doesn't matter, it should not stop you from getting certified, getting trained. I cannot be there at one particular person. I cannot sit there in a particular space. Probably you can do it in whatever space you do. But the idea is go out and really kill it, guys.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and they can.
Exactly.
Yep.
But thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Really appreciate you sharing the time, experience, and your perspective on all these pointers.
Thank you for
I hope
having
our
me.
viewers would have taken many things from there. So please subscribe to VSource. Please subscribe to
Supply SA.
Supply SA, VSource SA,
That's
and
right.
that's the right one. But thank you so much, Melanie.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.